So I'm Peter Walker, Managing Director of Maryculter House. In my mind, a career in hospitality is the best thing in the world. I've been doing it since I was 14 years old, which is now over 27 years, and I have got no regrets about what I've chosen to do for a living. I've had a good career, but what I would say to people is don't be disillusioned with the fact it is hard work. A little bit about my career background and how I got into hospitality. I started my customer service journey as a 14-year-old paperboy delivering the Press and Journal before school in Kemney. And even at that young age, it was really important to me that all my households and ultimately guests, the Press and Journal is a breakfast newspaper, people should be able to read it for their breakfast, with their breakfast. So I was always one of the first ones at the paper shop to pick up my papers before 6 o'clock in the morning. And for the year or so that I did, in fact I did my paper round for probably over 2 years, nobody really knew who the paperboy was because I was always around so early. Nobody knew who was delivering their paper. But it was actually really quite nice. 20 years later, I'm doing a wedding, and the bride's dad stood up and said, I never, to this day, thought that the paperboy would be running my daughter's wedding. So that was quite nice. I had a bit of a quandary at school as to what we were going to do for work experience. And I'd done a lot of business studies and computing courses as part of my senior school life. And the one lady that has really influenced me to get started in the industry was my business studies teacher, Mrs. Allen. If it wasn't for Mrs. Allen, I wouldn't have picked hotels for work experience at school. And this 26, 27-year career would never have happened. She asked what I was going to be doing for work experience, said I didn't know. At that point, back in my academy school life, the only really things that you were encouraged to do were the police, the army, go to university. I didn't think I was clever enough to go to university. Mrs. Allen suggested that I maybe try hospitality and hotels. So I thought, well, nothing ventured, nothing gained. Got a 4-day placement at what was the Gordon Arms Hotel in Inverurie, which is now Edwards, next to the roundabout in Marcliffe. Loved it. I did a day in the kitchen, a day serving at a function, a day in housekeeping, and a day in the restaurant. I asked at the end of the week if there was any chance of a part-time job, which I got. And I continued to work there for about 2.5, 3 years in conjunction with my paper round. While I was doing that, when I left school, I did a HNC, HND at college in hospitality operations and hospitality management. Loved doing hospitality operations because it was very hands-on and very practical. I enjoyed the hospitality management, but I came to the end of that and I got the chance to go to university to do my degree. At that point, if there was 3 of us leaving, if I left, there was 3 of us leaving college. If I waited a year, there was 53 people leaving university. So I kind of thought my law of averages of getting a job was a lot better because there's 3 of us looking for jobs in Aberdeen versus 53 of us looking for jobs in Aberdeen. And while I was going through college, I worked part-time at Pittodrie House on the outskirts of Inverurie, which was really good because by that time I was 18, I got into bar service, very much into weddings and events there, but also at that time it was privately owned. So there was a big focus on customer service, big focus on food and drink. And I learnt a huge amount there from Theo Smith, God bless him, and Nigel Guthrie, who was a general manager. And then once I'd finished college, there wasn't any opportunities to progress it at Pittodrie, so I wrote out to about 12, 15 different hotels. I made sure that my CV was clear, I made sure it was concise, I made sure it was printed on different paper than the covering letter, made sure the envelopes were printed, the stamps were straight, because obviously back then, Google didn't exist, emails didn't exist, so your first impression was how that manager or HR person opened that letter. I got a couple of opportunities down in Edinburgh. Unfortunately, there was no living accommodation and things, so that wasn't feasible to go to Edinburgh. But what I did get was a 2-year trainee scheme at the Craig and Darragh in Ballater. So I went to the Craig and Darragh. I insisted that I got to do food service first because I'd spent a lot of time in bars. I'd done a couple of stints in nightclubs and things as well. So I felt as if I needed to learn food service. So they very kindly put me in the Oaks Fine Dining restaurant to start with, which was amazing. I mean, I learnt from Gordon Kemp, who was the maitre d' at the time. We measured the glassware, we measured the cutlery, everything was the same distance from the edge of the table. You were lying in your tummy, lining up glasses and making sure the cut of crystal was going the same way. You were in 3 days a week cleaning your silver. You know, the standards, that classical training and that really traditional training and grounding I got as an 18, 19-year-old has never left me, ever. The chef at the time there, Paul Moran, and then Brian Donaldson, massive influences in my career, and I still keep in touch with them. Massive influences in my career. They taught me how to dress. They taught me the importance of polishing your shoes. They taught me the importance of wearing cufflinks, the importance of starching your collar and your shirt. And all those things have really, really stuck with me from a young age. I was in a 2-year training scheme there to do 4 months in every department around the resort. After about 3 months, I got pulled into the boss's office one Saturday night to let me know that Gordon, the maitre d', had resigned, and that there had been a consensus of an opinion within the senior team that I should take over running the restaurant. So at 19 and a half years old, I got my first restaurant manager's job. And when I say that it was really classical, traditional training, it was, you know, we were doing crêpe Suzette, cooking at the table, flambe work, you know, and when I look back with what I know now to then, that was at least the equivalent of a 3 rosette restaurant with the AA. And we were part of Hilton, we were the smallest Hilton in the world. And we all got measured on brand standards and mystery shopping compliance and things. And as an individual food and beverage outlet, I was ranked second in Scotland, behind Pittodrie House, which was really nice because, you know, we had big properties in the portfolio like Cameron's, the Hilton in Glasgow, and the Pompadour at the Calais, as it was known in Edinburgh. And I loved the whole country house feel because I'd done Pittodrie House, I'd done Craigendarroch. I met my now wife when we worked at the Craigendarroch. But I felt after a couple of years I needed to do conference and banqueting. I needed to learn how to play in the big event arena. So Nigel, who was at Pittodrie, had a bit of an influence, and I got an interview at Ardo, just outside Aberdeen. So I went to Ardo and I did 6 months in the restaurant at Ardo, and then I did 4.5 years in events, banqueting and events. And again, you have to learn when you're working in these places. The way that you had to think when you were operating Ardo, I mean, we could be doing 5 weddings a day. You know, so which bride were you looking after? How did you know it was your bride? How did you know you had the right favours? We could have 450 for dinner upstairs, 200 downstairs, a private dinner for 50, 10 in the boardroom in the restaurant going with 100 people in it. And I think what I learnt there, it really taught me how to think logically. And it taught my brain how to think logically because there was so much going on that you just had to be on it all the time. Huge learning curve. Aberdeen oil market was really buoyant at the time, lots of corporate work, but really hard on reflection, really hard, but what a learning experience for 4.5 years. And then I took the deputy's role at the Marcliffe, the only 5-star hotel in Aberdeen at the time. I got that job when I was 24, deputy at the Marcliffe. Some seen it as a little bit of a sideward step in terms it was still very hands-on, you were still very operational, which I understood, but in my mind I was doing it at a 5-star level. And I think that natural step into the Marcliffe again, you know, is it hard work when you love it? I'm not sure. You know, when you do what I do and you love what you do, going to work's a pleasure and it's fun because you get a lot of satisfaction out of it. I felt as if my 4.5 years or so at the Marcliffe really refined me as a professional, and it refined me as an individual, and it probably just sharpened up my attention to detail skills, and, you know, learning from ultimately one of the best in Stuart Spence, and still really good friends with him now. And yeah, that was probably the turning point from me being a very good 4-star manager to me becoming, you know, a 5-star product and mindset, and where you do anything for the customer or the guests. Shops get customers, hotels get guests. And then I got the call in 2009 from Andy Burgess that I'd worked with at Ardo about a project back out in rural Aberdeenshire, a bit more closer to home. And that was to take on Maryculter House as a GM, which I did. So I got that GM's job when I was 28, and massive plans for the property, massive investment from local owners again. And I spent 9.5 years there. Worked on some pretty significant projects. You're probably looking at a multi-million pound significant 7-figure investment into that property. Traded it very well. We had the marquee in the wedding market. We traded very well in the corporate whisky market. Oil was on a downturn in 2016. We opened a £5 million development. One of the most notable things that we achieved there is that we had a really settled team for a long time. We had brides and grooms coming in for their 5th year anniversary, still seeing waiting staff that worked at their wedding. We held 2 rosettes for the best part of that 9.5 years. Also, it was really quite humbling we won AA Hotel of the Year for Scotland 2014, 2015, which is probably one of the biggest accolades you can win in the country. And again, the only reason I'm highlighting this is that the opportunities to achieve these things at a young age, if you put in the groundwork in the early part of your career. I won one of the biggest awards in the industry at 33 years old. And then, we kicked on from winning AA Hotel of the Year for Scotland, and I was very fortunate in 2018 to become a Master Inn holder and a Freeman of the City of London, which was really nice. And what's nice about that was it was my industry peers. You get nominated for that, so there's a professional understanding of what you've managed to achieve as an individual. And then the opportunity to come to here at Maryculter House, and the past's all very relevant and it's all very exciting and whatnot, but it's not as exciting as what we're trying to do and what we're trying to achieve here. The opportunity to come in to the business to help rebrand it and reposition it. And yeah, we've got great ideas. We've got a plan of what we want to try and achieve over the next 3 to 5 years. And I'm really excited about delivering that. My business is your leisure. So it involves weddings happen at weekends. It involves working weekends. It involves working in the evenings. But the sense of satisfaction that you get from being part of someone's big day. A wedding, for example, is the most amount of money that a couple or a family will fork out with a house in their life. So when we're doing briefings and whatnot for staff, what we do on that Saturday afternoon, those guests will remember forever. What else can you do as a job where you're making memories forever? In my mind, a career in hospitality is the best thing in the world. It can take you anywhere. It's not all about 4- and 5-star hotels, although if you want to operate at the top of your game, that's certainly where you can go. There's some real iconic hotels within Scotland and within the UK. It allows you the opportunity to travel. But hospitality is so much more than just hotels. It's bars, it's restaurants, it's coffee shops, it's farm shops, it's ice cream vans, it's fish and chip shops, it's pubs. It's just, in my mind, it's just the best career in the world. And we don't need teams of superstars. If you want to come into this industry and you feel you get to a restaurant supervisor or you're a mixologist or a bar, if you get to a level that you're comfortable with and you're happy with, then that's amazing, because we need you. We don't need 50 aspiring general managers every year coming into the business. We need people that are passionate about what they do, they get to a level they're comfortable with, and they're happy. And if you're happy in what you do, then nothing else matters.